awesome, right? But you know what? If they need a status report, I'm okay with that, right? If they want a red, yellow, green dot, I'm kind of cool with that too. You know, I'll give them that. Okay, but there is a tremendous amount of communication happening. So rather than just say, hey, I'm not doing a communication plan, tell your customers in their language what they can expect. And again, a lot of folks think this stuff is really cool. It's just that we say crazy things in Agile. We talk about burn downs and velocity. We use language that people are unfamiliar with. Here's my communication plan. This is how you're going to know that you're getting what you need when you need it. This is how we're going to status update you. And even if it is something as straightforward as, you know, once a week we're going to demo the product for you, tell you what we've done and tell you what's left, that can go a long way. Now these are the ones that I think are the least interesting to try to explore because they kind of live outside the Team Agile stuff. So you know what? If you need a charter document or some really, really lightweight thing to instantiate a project, again, totally okay with that. The biggest difference when it comes to documentation that I try to impress upon people is that, you know, the Agile Manifesto doesn't say that we don't do any documentation. It just says that it's just not the #1 goal, right? We want working software. Okay, so if I can start thinking about the documentation and the artifacts that I might need to do as a communication tool rather than a checkbox on something, then that documentation, if I've got to write it, might actually become valuable. There's this one pretty junior project manager, pretty new guy that I was working with, and he needed some help writing a charter document. And so I said, okay, so we sat down, I said, okay, so who do you talk to, where are your notes? He goes, well, I haven't talked to anybody. Like, what do you mean you haven't talked to anybody? He said, well, yeah, I just have to write the charter document. I said, well, where are you going to get the information from? Well, you know, I don't know, I have this business case or something like that. And his fundamental mindset was that he had to do this piece of documentation because it was on his checklist and it was in his project plan and the PMO told him he had to. And he had totally missed the idea that that artifact is a representation of a conversation that happened, and it's a document that basically communicates our shared understanding of what it is that we're getting ready to do. Okay, it's not a checklist, it's not something that I want to go get you to sign off on, although if you've got to, you got to. As long as that document is a living, breathing document that communicates that shared understanding and is reflective of the shared understanding that you as a project manager helped create, it may or may not be valuable. Okay? So a lot of times it's just a matter of looking at the things that we're being asked to do a little bit differently. Procurement management, don't want to talk about HR, not very interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just those are the. It's like you start getting into like agile contract management, and that can be like a whole talk in and of itself and stuff like that. You know, again, all of those things tend to just boil down to, you know, collaboration with your customers over, you know, the contract negotiation thing. Okay. So sometimes when I do, there's a different form of this talk that I did last year, and one of the things that I tend to try to break Agile apart and talk about its pieces. And so when I tend to think about Agile, I tend to think about it as three major things. I think about it as a set of engineering practices. That's how a lot of people approach Agile. So you think about things like TDD, pair programming, continuous integration, simple design, that kind of thing, Agile testing. And then I think you can also understand Agile as project management, which is largely what I've tried to do here. Okay? Agile project management in the absence of Agile engineering practices is very, very weak. Okay? So all these things work together. And so again, over the last hour, we've talked a lot about this project management side, how to manage burn downs, how to manage requirements, things like that. Agile's also, I think there's a third primary aspect of it, which what I would call like the leadership framework. So as project managers, and this is where we kind of have a lot of room to grow, I think. And I think this is why it's hard sometimes for project managers to transition into Agile roles, because we're used to thinking about our role as the person that kind of tells folks what to do, right? We've got the plan, we're making sure you're on plan, I want status updates, I want contract and things like that. What we're doing though, is Agile project managers, we're creating opportunity for collaboration. We're becoming servant leaders, okay? We're thinking less about managing the team and more about managing the context around the team. Okay? So when Agile talks about things like empowerment, self-organization, trust, I always add accountability because I think trust and accountability go hand in hand. But those are the softer things. Those are the things where I think a lot of times as project managers we've got room to grow. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think project management and empowering, letting people self-organize, trusting people, I don't think those things are incongruent. The best managers I've ever had, whether they be project managers or development managers or just functional managers, were folks that gave me the opportunity to be successful, to fail, created the environment around me where I could have the best chance of being successful. They were empowering leaders, right? So if nothing else, what Agile is doing is it's calling us to become not just great project managers, but great project leaders, okay? And that's where kind of this, I think as practitioners, if we approached our craft as project managers with this mindset of servant leadership, I think we can reinstantiate the role of management. I personally believe, and this has been a huge shortcoming, I think, of Agile, is that we don't define what project managers do, and we don't define what just our regular line managers do. Okay, so these folks get left out. And I personally believe that management has a role, project management, line management, but we have to call our managers to behave more like leaders. Okay? And so this was a kind of slide that I just cheated up on a little bit in my last little talk. But when I was more of an active day-to-day project manager and less of kind of an Agile coach person, I used to really love it when I pick up a new project and I'd get myself embedded in that project. And ultimately, there would be this turning point or this tipping point on the project where people started coming to me, right? They kind of asked my permission for things, right? They'd say, well, what do I do next? All that kind of a thing. And I'd be like, okay, cool, I got this under control, right? The team sees me as their leader, I'm really good, right? I got everything on a Gantt chart, we know where we're supposed to be. And that was really awesome for me. Okay, but the reality is an Agile project manager, it's less about that. It's less about telling people what to do. It's less about being the hub on the project. And it's much more about creating the opportunity either within the team or across teams for that self-organizing to emerge, to create the environment where the product can emerge. Okay, so I'm making sure I'm watching the dynamics from the outside in, making sure that the team's establishing stable velocity, all that kind of stuff. And then from the outside, I'm managing the context around them. I'm being very proactive with the senior leadership in the organization. I'm making sure that we've got the money that we need, that we've got the tools that we need, that the rest of the organization is going to be prepared to accept the deliverables that we're building. Okay? And so it just requires just a different way of thinking about it. So just real quick, and I'll get wrapped up here, is that a lot of times when you guys go back in your organization and you're pumped up from a conference like this, you've got some tools and tips and tricks, you put those things in, and it's awesome, right? One of the things I really encourage you, and this is kind of like where I was at 6 years ago, learn about the stuff, study this stuff, understand where your organization needs to be, and then the things that you do are kind of in context. You guys can introduce some ideas that enable your organization to move forward, but have a vision for where you guys want to be as project managers and where you want your project organizations to be. And then just finally, what's really kind of cool is that PMI is starting to kind of realize that Agile's out there and that it's a force. Little known fact, oh gosh, I'm going to lose the name. Oh, Frank Schettini is the CIO of PMI. He uses Scrum to do all the development projects in PMI. That's kind of cool, right? There's an Agile PMI community of practice. I'm part of the leadership team for it. It's got a very active Yahoo group around it. There's some wikis. We do some things with webinars and stuff like that to try to evangelize some of these ideas out to the traditional PMI community. It's actually become the largest community of practice out there. There's a ton of interest around this. PMI is paying attention. They've got formal initiatives around it. They reached out to a lot of us to become reviewers or contributors to the pt5 that's coming up. We're going to start seeing Agile hit project management, right? So we've got to figure out how to deal with this. We've got to figure out what our role is. So with that, there's my contact information. I'll hang out. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.